Thank you. Speaking about the impact of COVID-19 on education in South Africa, Ms. Nopumelelo identified the difficulty faced by school learners who are forced to learn from home in assessing learning materials. She identified three causes of the difficulty, namely, one, the limited access to broadband, internet broadband; two, unavailability of learning materials in the home languages of the school learners; and three, availability of the learning materials but behind paywalls. The two last causes that she identified of the difficulty are copyright-related issues. Now my questions are, did the department consider the copyright issues and how copyright exceptions and limitations, such as fair use, would contribute to enabling access to learning materials for learners in future pandemics? If our department did not consider copyright and issues of exceptions and limitations, is this an issue the department is willing to look at in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In terms of teachers' access to materials and digitization versus exceptions, in our case, similar to my colleague here, we have had textbook provisions that are quite restricted or controlled, and so there's a prescription about which textbooks can be used in classrooms. Those are largely historically developed and delivered in hard copy. There is for us a big need to digitize these resources so that they could be available to children at home. A big need to make those interactive so you can track usage, etc., and have interaction between teachers and learners with that. And then thinking about copyright or access, we think about it in two ways. One is having an emergency vaccine like we've been lobbying for in COVID. It's an exception. You make it accessible now because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But the way we're thinking about it is slightly different. It's thinking about it as generic medicines. So something that continues to be available even after the pandemic, because as a government ministry, that's the only way we can plan. If we know our access is not going to be restricted to the next 6 months or the next year, then it's not a good investment case. But if we know that in terms of reading and textbook materials, these are going to be available for long term as an exception, as the generic, there is a much better case for digitizing, for investing, for planning, and for implementing that. And I think that's the answer then in terms of how we're thinking about fair use and other copyright rules in terms of accessing textbooks. Thanks.